and they had their hands slowly hovering over the contours of my body. They weren't actually touching my body. There was no contact at all, but the energy that was coming from their hands was just so immense. It was just like a powerful force, uh, but it was a beautiful force. It was like I describe it as being an energy of love. I could feel that there was this love that was emanating from their hands, and this. I felt that they were going beyond just healing the shock that my body had been through. I felt they were going down deeper. They were getting right down. They were like, it felt like they were taking off all the different layers of uh, of hurt that I'd received throughout the whole of my life, that we all do.
Today, I'd like to welcome David Ditchfield to the show. David, welcome to Conscious Conversations.
Thank you for having me on. It's great to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too. And thank you for joining me from across the world from where I am. I'm honored to have you as a guest today. And I'm really excited to hear about your near-death experience. And
Mhm.
so I say, let's just get into it. And if you want to share anything leading up to your near-death experience and the experience itself, the floor is yours.
Sure. Okay. Well, my story starts at a rail station in Cambridge in the UK. Um, it starts there because I'd been seeing a friend off at the station. I was helping her onto the car with her bags and giving her a hug and a kiss goodbye, as we all do. And we heard the buzzers going for the automatic doors to close. So I stepped back, and as I did step back, my coat got trapped in those automatic closing doors, and it was a very thick sort of quality coat, so there was no way I was going to pull it free. So of course I yelled for help was the first thing, and I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with the station, but what I didn't realize, there was no guard actually on this complete route, and it was all sort of automated, and so no guard turned up, so I started banging on the windows, and then I just yelled out hoping that the driver would hear me, and still nothing happened. So I started to get pretty worried by this stage, because I remember looking through the glass and I could see through the reflection. I could see, not only my own face, but I could see the look of terror in my friend's face. I thought, oh no, this is not good. So the engine started to roar, and I thought, wow. I felt literally like I was, for the first time in my life, I was facing death. I was looking death in the eyes, as it were, and it's a very terrifying moment to actually almost have to anticipate it rather than it come straight at you. And but I went into fight or flight mode, and I decided to fight. And so there was something came over me, a sense of calm, actually, initially, even though it was very terrifying. And so I thought, right, just let's just try and walk our way through this, and hope that the coat pulls free. So the train started edging out of the station, and then it started pulling up great speed, and I lost my footing, and I was eventually pulled along the platform edge, and then between the platform edge and the speeding train, I went under the wheels, and I was just like, it was like being sucked into like this huge, great sort of like mechanical beast, and I was still in this fight or flight mode, and I still felt relax your body, just keep yourself relaxed is what I kept telling myself, which wasn't easy, because when you've been thrown around at great speed underneath a train, knowing that imminent death is almost there, is not easy to do. But I did do, and I managed to sort of uh, get myself thrown in between the tracks as the train continued on. And I thought, well, it's not over yet. I could get hit over the back of the head by part of the undercarriage of the train itself. So I just kept my face right down into the gravel. And I remember thinking to myself, I remember thinking of all the adventure films I've seen, whether Marvel films or whatever, or 007. I thought, what would 007 do now? He would keep his face right down into the gravel. So that's what I did. And it probably did save my life at that point. So the train moved on eventually, and there I was laid there in complete agony and in total shock because this had all happened so quick. Although it felt like minutes, it was like time had expanded and stretched. It was just it's really interesting. In fact, I saw a documentary recently with this guy called David Eagleman, who's a professor from the US, and he says that apparently when people are in these situations where they're facing death, that it's not like time slows down, but it expands. It's almost like as if you were to take your life from looking through an old video recorder into like full sort of cinematic 35 mil screen. And so yeah, so anyway, I was able to take it all in, and um I just remember then going to grab my cell phone, and I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket to dial for an emergency service, but of course it was smashed. But the guys arrived really quick, and they jumped down onto the track and started cutting through my clothes, and then they somehow got me off that track and into the back of an ambulance. And I remember the doctor saying to me, "Look, we've just come from a hospital around the corner, but the place that's going to really save your life is 30-minute drive. Can you hang in there?" I said, "Yeah, let's go." So the siren went on, and we just sped off down the highway, and then we eventually arrived in the hospital. There was a whole team of medics waiting there, and we were wheeled in, or I was wheeled in, I should say, on this trolley, and I could hear a lot of confusion and in their voices and fear. I didn't know what they were talking about. Of course, it was all science to me, but it was all facts and figures. So I figured it's still not over yet because I realized that I was losing an awful lot of blood by now. My left arm, I'd noticed had been cut from the elbow down, so that was pretty bad. Um, and but I did have a really good surgeon who was working with me, and he kept me really calm. And he said, "Look, David, we're going to have to take you into surgery to operate on you. But your family are here. Would you like to see them?" I said, "Yeah, great." So they came in. I couldn't believe that they were there, but there they were. And then they came in, and my parents arrived, and my mom was in tears and everything. And I wanted to speak not only to them, but my friend who I saw was at the back of the emergency department. She was sat there in complete shock. I said, "I need to speak to Anna." So she came forward, and she was like shaking her head from side to side. She said, "I can't believe you're alive. They announced over the speakers that you were dead." So I said, "Well, I'm still here." And it was at that point that I left all the agony that I was in. I left the drama of the hospital, and I was suddenly in this beautiful darkened space. It was like a very comforting darkness. It wasn't a sort of foreboding darkness. I felt like I was dead. I felt this was it. I hadn't survived. I thought I must be dead. And I didn't fight it, interestingly enough. It's not like I wanted to die, but after all that I'd just been through, it was a welcome sort of calmness. So I went with it, and then I tried to get my bearings, and I pulled myself up from this hospital trolley that I'd been laid on, and I looked and I realized I was now laid on a huge granite rock. It's like a huge rock that well, almost like a slate sort of finish to it, which was surprisingly comfortable to lay on, despite the fact that I realized I was no longer clothed. I was just covered in this blue satin silky material, which comforted me almost like a child's comfort blanket. And I looked around me to sort of get my bearings, and I saw all these beautiful pulsating colors of light all around me that were keeping me really calm and safe, like colors of ambers, greens, reds, and yellows, slowly pulsating, almost like sort of the lights on a runway at night as you take off on a plane. And so I thought, well, this is clearly a safe place wherever I am. And I thought, I better check my wounds, my body, and see how everything is looking. And as I looked down, everything was in place. There wasn't even a single scratch or bruise. There was no cuts. There was nothing. Everything was fixed. So that made me feel very sort of comforted as well. So I decided to lay back on this huge granite rock and close my eyes. And as I closed my eyes, I lay there for a while, and I started to see light coming through my eyelids. And so I opened my eyes, and there, just above my face, were like three symmetrical grids of white light slowly closing in towards me. And the white this white light was really intense. It was just so bright that normally in this realm I wouldn't have been able to look into it, but somehow in this realm it was fine. It was easy. In fact, I couldn't take my gaze away because I sensed that there was more than just light coming from these grids. I sensed there was like a healing balm, a healing energy that was coming from this light. So I just closed my eyes again and decided to bathe in this light, and I felt a sensation that this energy was like sort of healing, well, the shock that my whole body had been through, and also my emotions, of course, had just been through. And as time went on, I started to feel a sensation that somebody was there all of a sudden. So I opened my eyes again and lifted my head, and there just stood at my feet was this person. There was this beautiful androgynous person wearing a very simple black t-shirt like I'm wearing now, nothing too kind of like ethereal or heavenly as I might have imagined, just this simple contemporary t-shirt with this beautiful white blonde hair and this skin that was like emanating light from within. This person was just glowing, and I felt familiar with this person immediately. In fact, I knew this person's face, but I couldn't figure where from. And so I said out loud, I said, "Who are you? I know you, don't I? Where do I know you from? I've seen you before, and I know your face so well." And this person smiled back at me and didn't actually speak any words to me. But I was starting to realize that information was coming through in a form of telepathy. And what I realized was this person was keeping me safe. This person was like a gatekeeper, if you like. This person was guarding me and as to whatever was about to evolve in front of me. And so I closed my eyes, safe in this knowledge that this person was there to guard me. And I went with this sensation of calmness and healing. And then I felt there was somebody else had arrived and at the scene, as it were, and I opened my eyes once again, and to my left and my right were two female forms this time, stood either side of me. The girl to my right was very European looking, long brown hair, though quite dark skin, and again a very simple brown dress. And whereas the girl to my left was more sort of American Indian, Asian Indian, or South American maybe, and she was wearing a more traditional white dress and a very beautiful dress, and they had their hands slowly hovering over the contours of my body. They weren't actually touching my body. There was no contact at all. But the energy that was coming from their hands was just so immense. It was just like a powerful force. Uh, but it was a beautiful force. It was like I describe it as being an energy of love. I could feel that there was this love that was emanating from their hands, and this I felt that they were going beyond just healing the shock that my body had been through. I felt they were going down deeper. They were getting right down. They were like, it felt like they were taking off all the different layers of uh, of hurt that I'd received throughout the whole of my life, that we all do. We all carry in the UK. I don't know what you call it the same in the US. We say, oh, that person's carrying a lot of baggage, i.e., that person's carrying a lot of weight. And so all those years of baggage were slowly being taken off me bit by bit, and and they were getting right down. They were penetrating down to the pure essence of my soul, and I'd never felt so liberated at all as I did at this moment in time. It was just I felt so light and I felt so energized and I felt present and I just felt free of all sense of guilt and shame because I'd realized that I'd been carrying so much of that with me, unnecessarily so. So all this is gone, and so I just closed my eyes again and went with this whole sensation of liberation. And I started to think about my family because obviously, they've been in a pretty cut up. My parents in particular, my mum had been in tears. I remember, my mum stood over me just before, and I was saying, "Mum, it's always me bringing all the dramas to this family. I'm so sorry." And of course, she put a hand over my mouth and said, "It's not your fault. It really isn't your fault. Stop." So I knew how cut up she was at that point. So I thought they're going to be going through an awful lot now if I passed over and I'm now no longer on the earth, as it were, with them. Um, so I hoisted myself up on this rock, and then I tried to pull myself over the edge to look down because I figured if I looked down, I would probably see them because I figured that I was somewhere up there rather than down there, And I looked over the edge of this rock, and sadly, I couldn't see them at all. But it was okay because what I did see was the most awe-inspiring sort of sight. It was this incredible view. It was like a when I say it was a view, it was because it was like it was a waterfall of stars, and it was a waterfall of stars that was the size of Niagara or Victoria Falls. It was like a huge arc that was curving round, but instead of billions of tons of water cascading over the edge. It was billions of sparkling stars that were just slowly, gracefully falling over, with shooting stars, sort of crossing over. And I looked down, I was going, wow. I was like looking down, and I suddenly thought, I'm not in a small darkened space at all. I'm actually in the universe itself. And I felt that universal pull for the first time in my life. I felt like I was in the universe itself. I felt the energy of the universe moving forward and me moving forward with it. And as I looked down, I started to fix my gaze, and I found that I was like looking. I felt like I was looking through one galaxy into another. I was looking into infinity, and colors were starting to form, nebulas, all these different formations, nothing like I'd ever seen before in my life. Because, in all fairness, I'd never shown any interest in astronomy whatsoever. To me, the universe was just like the occasional flicker when I might look up at the night sky and just see the blackness with sparkling white stars. But no, these were beautiful colors of formations of nebulas like I'd never seen before. Um, so this sensation of being part of the universe and being made me realize that I am actually part of this. We're all part of the universe, and I now know that to be the case, and that had never occurred to me before. And so I pulled myself back over, and I thought, well, I can't see my family, and again, there was no sense of worry or irrational thoughts. I just thought, okay, well, I can't see them now, but hopefully I will see them at some point in the future, maybe here on this side. And if I don't, they will get to explore and enjoy all these wonders that I'm experiencing myself now. So I was okay with all that. This was what was amazing about it all. There's no negative thoughts whatsoever. Everything is just totally calm and rational, which is very unlike my kind of state of mind at that point in my life. So yeah, so I pulled myself over and laid back and decided just to continue to go with this whole sensation of oneness with the universe and close my eyes again. But the most profound moment, uh, which was again universal, was to happen right at the end. I suddenly felt as my eyes were closed that this energy of love that was coming from the hands of these healers was now intensified. It was like somebody had turned up a huge dial, and this energy of unconditional love that was coming from the hands was so strong. It was like a force that was like causing every single molecule of my body to vibrate with love. So I lifted my head, and there stood well, just sorry, just beyond the person who was stood at my feet was this huge tunnel of white light that was coming through the universe. It was vast. It was absolutely huge, and there were flames that were slowly circulating all the way around the edge of this white light. Again, normally this would be something that would be quite terrifying to look at if you don't know what's going on, but there was no sense of fear, only trust. And so I had faith that this was something beautiful. And then I was being told that what I was staring at here now was the source of all creation. This was God, not God in the form that I'd seen in my school textbooks, of the guy with the long grey beard. This was God in the form of this huge tunnel of white light that was sending out this energy of unconditional love, pure unconditional love. And I was told that you are loved throughout, and you're so worthwhile. And it was at that point that I remember my head went back and I laughed out loud with sheer joy. And I was suddenly thrown back into my body, into the hospital, and all the pain came rushing through me once again. And the this beautiful white light was now replaced with fluorescent strip that was kind of screaming into my eyes, and the noise was just like, oh, overkill. But that's okay. It's a lot of people say to me, you must have been really sort of disappointed to come back. But interestingly, I wasn't, because I was still charged with this incredible energy that I just, and the whole experience that I'd just been through.
Wow, that is so fascinating. I'm remembering now from seeing you on other podcasts, just, the waterfall of stars, and so many pieces of your story are so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm really curious if so you had this sense of trust, you had this sense of calm as you were having these experiences. Before you had this experience, were you aware of any kind of spiritual principles? Did you have spiritual beliefs before this? Or was all of this kind of new information or kind of a shock to you?
Yeah, it was a total shock to me, to be honest with you, because my life had been completely non-spiritual. Yeah, I'd my parents were Christian, and so when I was a kid, we went to church as a family, but I never really got that. I never felt comfortable with the church, and they were quite liberal, and they said. I said, Mom, I don't feel comfortable with this. And she said, that's okay, you can stay at home. So I did do. So it wasn't like I was atheist, but I didn't really, after that point onwards, and I didn't have any faith really. So when it happened, I didn't even know what had happened to me. I remember when I sort of when I was in the hospital later that night after they'd operated on me, I was, first of all, yeah, obviously I was contemplating what had just happened. I'd been under a train, that was huge thing to deal with. But I was consumed with this whole experience. I thought, what has happened to me, and why have they sent me back? And what just happened? Am I the only person this has happened to? Because I'd never heard of a near-death experience. I knew nothing of other people experiencing anything like this. So yeah, so it was a total shock to me. It was totally new.
Yeah. So, okay. So that was my next question was, did you remember it right away, or did it take a while for some of this to come back to you? So it sounds like you had that experience fresh in your awareness and in your memory. What was it like? Like, how long did it take you to open up and share with people in your life? And what was that experience like? Were they accepting? Did they look at you like you were crazy? Like, how was sharing and reintegrating back into this reality for you?
Yeah, yeah. No, well, interestingly for me, I couldn't wait to tell everybody. To be honest I mean, in fact, when it happened, my friend Anna was still stood by me, and I said, Anna, the most amazing thing has just happened, and I've got to tell you all about it. And she was going, no, not now, David. You can tell me later. That they're about to sort of get you ready for theatre. And I said, okay. And so I couldn't wait to tell people. So there was no sense of like me feeling like people are going to think I'm crazy, because I didn't really care about that at all, because it was just too profound. This was too huge for me just to suddenly say to myself, no, I can't tell people about it. It took me a week to tell my parents about it because, as I said to you, with them being Christian, I thought this might kind of jar with their sort of beliefs and stuff. So I thought they might not get it, and I wanted them to get it. And interestingly, when I did tell them, call it the instinct of a mother's instinct or whatever. But I told them the whole story, and they sat there. And when I finished telling them, I remember they turned around and they said, "We know." I said, "You know? How come you know?" And then they said, "Well, we come in, and the hospital had given me my own room, because of the severity of the whole thing, And then they said, we walk in here, and you've got tubes and wires coming out of you. You've got nurses running around and stuff." He said, "But you're just glowing, and you're just giving out help to everybody else. You're giving back to other people and stuff. And we've never seen you like this before. And my friends were saying you seem so animated, So once I told them, it didn't matter what the rest of the world thought about it anyhow. So yes, I mean, once your family get it, and that was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool that they saw you glowing and giving back as the women and the entities that you saw were giving you so much light and so much healing. That's really fun to hear. And so you did mention that as they were putting their hands over you and not actually touching you, but having this light, giving you this light, you felt like there was less baggage and that you were more free. I'm curious how that impacted your life as you recovered from this crazy accident and,
Mhm.
faced
Yeah.
the world. Did it change you?
It did do big time. Before that, my life had been, I hit rock bottom. I'd never sunk so low in my life. I was about to be evicted from my apartment. I was running out of money. I was running out of work. Things had gone really bad. I'd been living in London, and I'd left school with very little qualifications, so it was hard for me to pick up work in London. So you can imagine what a struggle it was for me. So yeah, so things had got pretty bad, and then suddenly I was transformed into feeling completely happy, comfortable in my own skin, happy and optimistic, and all these wonderful feelings. I mean, I will say that 6 months later, I did hit a wall on that with those feelings and emotions, because well, that's because I mean, I'd come back from that realm, just filled with all this love, as you just pointed out yourself. That light had been given to me, and I felt that it was still coming through while I was healing. The consultant said, and the doctors were saying that you're healing at an incredible rate. And I said, I know, that's because I'm being helped. I'm getting help. And they're scientists. They're going, okay. And but I really was. It was tremendous. Yet, because of the nature of my accident, the UK rail police had to be involved in it all. So there was obviously a lot of legal stuff involved, and and I wasn't equipped for that, if you like. I wasn't protected to be able to. It's obviously the legal arena is quite a tough one. That you can't go into it saying, "Hey, I forgive everyone. I love you all," and stuff like that. It's all about being poker faced, isn't it, and stuff on the whole thing, which I couldn't do that. I couldn't act like that at all. So I struggled with all that. So yeah, so I had to learn how to protect myself. And the way I got around this was, there was a lot of synchronicity started to happen in my life. I realized as well afterwards, and one of those moments of synchronicity was that I started having spiritual healing, and I was spiritual healing is almost very similar to the kind of, almost like sort of healing that I was receiving in the other side. It's not really hands-on. It's just kind of hands almost just touching you, and the energy is just coming through from from the healer's guides. And so yeah, but they said to me, these healers, they said, David, you're not protecting yourself. You're absorbing all this this healing energy that's coming through. But when you walk out this door, you've got to protect yourself because you know it's a tough world out there. So I had to learn to do that. So yeah.
I am actually a Reiki healer. And so when you were describing that, I was like, oh, you were getting Reiki from these angels.
Yeah, I've never had
So
Reiki healing, but that's what I've been
yeah,
told that it's very similar to that. It sounds just
yeah.
like it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we don't touch. You can, but you just hold your
Mm.
hands over and you allow the light to come through and heal. So
Oh,
yeah, that's
right.
really
Yeah. So you're channeling the energy through them when you're healing, then, are you?
hmm.
Would you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
opening up
Fantastic.
to be a channel for it's not me. I'm not healing anyone. I'm just a
Exactly.
channel
Yeah,
for the light.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say
Yeah.
exactly. I'm sure you're a beautiful healer. I don't mean that, but I say exactly because when I speak to the spiritual healers, I always say, "Oh, you guys are amazing," and they say, "Oh, well, it's not us. You know,
Right.
we're not. You know, we're just conducting. You know, we're
Yep.
conductors, as it were." Yeah.
Yeah. So I've interviewed quite a few people who have had a near-death experience and also researchers. So I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with near-death experiences. And one of
Mm.
the similarities that I've seen, I'm curious if you've experienced. So quite a few people who've had a near-death experience prior to their NDE, they are not aware of or tapped into or tuned into any sensitivities or psychic abilities. And I'm curious if you came back and now have some sensitivities or some are psychic, some are channels, some are mediums. Was that part of your experience at all?
Well, I didn't actually come back. But I came back with new abilities for sure. But they wouldn't. I wouldn't say them as being psychic or healing abilities. What happened was when I laid in the hospital room, I thought to myself, I was scared I was going to forget all this, and I thought, um, I need to I need to sketch this down, and so I need to do a painting. Like I'd done nothing like this before, and I just got it in my mind. I was going to do a huge painting, like the big sort of Renaissance style biblical scenes, you know. And I thought that's how I'm going to portray it to the world is in a huge painting. So I stuck to my word, and that's what I did. I started painting, and I suddenly realized from that first painting onwards that I got new skills. I was being given almost like a crash course on how to, you know, bring out colors and skin tones and all these different things, and bring tones alive and stuff. So yeah, so I started off doing this one painting that I thought that would be the only one that I would do. Then I couldn't stop. I was prolific. I kept painting lots of different paintings, all based on the experience that I'd seen in the other world. And yeah, but it went beyond that because when I talked to you earlier about going for spiritual healing, some of those healers are clairvoyant, and they used to turn around and say, you know, just short messages. They'd say, "Oh, when we were healing, you would see different colors of light coming through you." Then they started to say, you know, why am I seeing a violin laid across your chest, or I'm hearing Wagner and Beethoven? I said, I have no idea, you know. And you know, I just any music I'd ever listened to, you know, was just like sort of just, you know, rock and roll or whatever you want to call it, you know. So and then one of them said, "Are you going to write a piece of music about your experience?" I went, "Okay." So I went home and I got this old sort of synthesizer in the loft. So I got that down and I got nothing else. So to record what I was working on. So I asked my dad, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I've got this old cassette recorder in the garage." So I just got that off him, and that's all I had. And I started working on this piece of music, and suddenly it started evolving into more than just what I thought would just be a song, you know. And I thought this could be performed. This feels more like it should be performed, I should say, by an orchestra. And so I got the same sense of like nothing's going to hold me back. Why not? You know, and I've got no training whatsoever. I can't read or write music still to this day. But I'd made friends with a cello player in the local orchestra, the St Ives Chamber Orchestra, and in Cambridge, and I was telling her all about it, and she said, "Oh, maybe we could perform this new piece of music you're working on." I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So my brother, he said to me, he said, "I know all about this kind of stuff." He said, "Let me tell you that an orchestra cannot work off cassettes that you've got off our dad's old cassette recorder. It has to be written out in score." So I said, "How am I going to get around that?" And he said, "Well, look, I can give you my old laptop and I can give you this app, which means that when you play on the keyboard, it will transpose it into musical format." I had to learn how to sort of get put all the inflections in and stuff, but to cut to the chase, that's what I did. And I said, "Look, I've got some score. Would you guys be interested in having a look?" So they said, "Yes." So I met for coffee with the orchestra. They looked at it and said, "Yeah, we'll do it." So more synchronicity started to happen because they said to me, "Oh, look, would you mind saying a few words to the local press?" And I said, "Yeah, that's great." So I did do, and the local press said, "Ah, you're the guy who went under the train, aren't you?" Because it was covered heavily in all the news,
Mm.
throughout the UK, in fact. And so they said this is going on the front page, so it did do. And then the phone started to ring, and then I started getting more and more sort of media attention. And then the concert sold out 2 weeks in advance, which the orchestra were totally delighted with. And so it made for a beautiful premiere because it meant that there was this. It was the venue was like a converted church, and it was like a beautiful old church, was like over 200 years old. And it was a summer's evening, and I remember just as the conductor's baton came down, I wasn't the only person to see this, but a white dove suddenly landed on the windowsill outside this kind of like beautiful paned glass, and just as it started, and the performance was amazing. I just sat there and I just enjoyed it. I didn't have to go through any sense of nerves, or I just thought this is sounding really beautiful, and I thought the whole piece, it's called The Divine Light, and it's actually written all about my near-death experience. It takes you through the whole journey in three different movements. So I thought, this is great. I'm reaching people. I'm telling my story not only through my art, but now through music as well. So yeah, so it's just it's amazing how it all evolved, from me just thinking I'm just going to start telling a few people about this to suddenly reaching out to more and more people.
Yeah. And this idea of creation where you're speaking it right here with me. You're talking about the experience on podcasts, but there's other ways to communicate that. So I know that I'm super curious. I bet the audience is just as curious as well. Where or can we even get exposed to this piece of music, this orchestra, as well as your art? Is there a place where we can see or hear it?
Yeah, sure. If you go to my website, which is it's called shineonthestory.com. So if you go there, and you can stream all three movements for free. So you can listen to the music there, and some of my paintings are on there. In fact, one of my paintings has just been on loan to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. So that was on loan there for a year, which is really exciting to me because they approached me. They said, "Look, we're doing an exhibition called Science and Structure and Scripture, sorry, Science and Scripture, and we'd like to feature one of your paintings because we're going to be talking about near-death experiences in this exhibition." So one of my paintings was flown out there. It's just come back to me now. So that's just good. So that painting's on there, and but and there's links to my social media. The reason I say that is because you may want to, if you're interested, follow me on there because all new paintings that I'm producing all the time, I always put them up on my social media. I've just been commissioned by the Spiritualist Church, where I started going to healing, initially to do a painting for them. So I'm excited about doing that. So that's my latest one. That's going to be a really big painting, and that's coming together really beautifully. And I tell you what, I'm so excited about this one because it's something that I want to be able to give back to the church because they gave me so much. But not only that, I just feel like I'm channeling big time on this. There's just so much energy coming through, that's helping me to piece this actual painting together. I should be careful not to big it up too much in case people are disappointed. But I'm happy with it so far. I'm excited about it. Yeah. So
And just
yes,
to clarify, prior to your near-death experience, you were not interested or doing any kind of art at all. Is that right?
no, that's absolutely true. I mean, I'd left school, like I say. I mean, when I was a kid, I enjoyed drawing and stuff like that, and I would love to have taken that further. But I was told, by my teachers at school, forget it. You'll never go to art school because you need the academics first to get in there, which seemed insane to me. I thought, well, why? But anyhow, so I've got no sort of training in that, and I certainly have got no training whatsoever in being able to write for an orchestra. I mean, that's one, to me it seems like it's a normal, to me it's completely, feels completely like all part of the process. I mean, I'm dyslexic, but I went on to write a book. That was the third sort of brick in my wall, as it were, of creation. And I wrote the book with the help of a co-author. I would not be able to write a book on my own. There's no way. So I had a co-author who was a friend who got in touch with me and said, "When are you going to write your story?" And I said, "How am I going to do that? I'm dyslexic." So my co-author said, "Look, I'll work on this with you." And so that's what we did. And so that came out. And if you want to sample that, you can. There's the first chapter is on my website as well, so you can download that for free just to get a taste of what my book is like, and then you can decide whether you want to go and order it. I mean, it's still out now. It's on Amazon and stuff. So wherever you are in the world, it's pretty much available. So, and that's called Shine On. So yeah, so yeah. Sorry, I sound like I'm plugging my book, but the reason I'm plugging it because if people are interested in the story, then it'll take you on to yet another dimension of the whole essence of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will be sure to include all the links to your website, to your social media in the description of the show, because I know that as soon as we're done recording here, I'm going to go take a look because I'm just fascinated with the progression of your story and how it gave you this new way of communicating what you experienced with the world. So I'm really excited for that, and I appreciate you
Brilliant.
telling us all about this. So I know we've been talking for a while. I do have three questions that I ask
Mm.
all my guests, but before we go there, is there any message that you have that either wasn't said, wants to be said, or anything at all that you would like to share with those who are listening today?
Oh, God, there's so many. There's
So the first question I ask all my guests is, how would you define God or source?
right. So I would define God as being the light that's within all of us. That God is part of us. We're part of God. And in the same way as God is part of the universe, and we're all part of the universe itself. When I talked about my experience of when I saw the waterfall of stars and feeling a sensation of moving forward with the universe, I felt that I was moving forward with the energy of God. And it's all connected. It's all one. We're all one, with the universe itself. And it's something that we've forgotten about basically because technology is kind of like sort of is fantastic. I love technology. Without it, I wouldn't be sat here chatting with you now, and I wouldn't be alive either. But we forget that we're part of the animal kingdom. That we're actually guided by the laws of the universe, just like everything else in the animal kingdom or within nature itself. Where I'm living now, yes, I see birds that migrate and they come back at the same time every year and then they nest, and so they're all driven by the laws of the universe, and we kind of forgotten that. So yeah, we're all part of the universe, and it's all driven by the same energy as God. Yeah.
Awesome. The second question is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Well, this may sound a bit surprising, but it's actually to be challenged, you know, that there's no escaping the fact that life is challenging. It doesn't matter how enlightened we may be, you know, even, you know, the most enlightened souls that are out there that are out there talking at the moment, you know, on YouTube or whatever, they're still challenged. Everyone's still challenged, and life is there to challenge us. And the reason I say that, and that's not is also a positive thing. There's a positive swing to that because what I've learned from my own experience, and as I said to you, you know, I'd hit rock bottom, and what I've realized is that out of all adversity comes spiritual growth. You know, spiritual growth, a spiritual awakening can happen from your darkest hour. You know, the dark night of the soul, as they call it. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I've had several dark nights of the soul, and I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be doing this if I had not experienced that hardship or those challenges. So I agree.
Bless you. Yeah, exactly.
The final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to a younger version of yourself, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
Okay. Well, that would be to stop focusing on the past or focusing on the future, because both the past and the future are stories, you know, they don't exist anymore. The only thing that exists and is real is the present moments, the here and now, you know. Yes, the past does exist. It's probably out there floating around in a bubble out in the universe somewhere, but it doesn't exist in the here and now. It is essentially a story. And that story can stretch into all different directions, depending on what spin we put on it, and especially the future, you know, because generally speaking, when we concern ourselves with future thoughts and worrying about the future, it's normally a worst case scenario that we feed ourselves with, you know, unless we happen to be a very optimistic person, you know, which generally speaking, most of us aren't. Most of us are quite pessimistic, and we tend to fear the worst case scenario. You know, I'm sure, you know, we all have it where you just kind of think, oh, I'm dreading tomorrow. I've got an exam or I've got this happening. I'm taking my driving test. It's going to be a disaster. I'm going to fail and all these different things. And that day's passed and we get to the end of it and we go, wow, it went really well. That was okay. That went pretty good. And that's because, you know, our minds can play, you know, the thinking mind can it can play real tricks on us, you know. So try to avoid thinking about the past or the future and just try to be aware of the present moments and look around you, even when you're watching a news item that is pretty scary or whatever, you know, that stop and look around you and say, well, hopefully for most of us, look around at your space and say, I'm okay. I'm still living and breathing at this moment in time. It's not as bad as the hysteria that's been fed to me through the news. So yeah.
I love that. When I was in treatment about 16 years ago, and I do this with my kids now, when I would get really, really anxious, my therapist would tell me, name 5 things that you can feel. And then she would tell me, name 5 things that you can see. And she'd pick a color, like that are red or that are black. And then she'd
Mm.
ask me to name 5 things that I could hear. And just in starting that exercise, it brought me right here. And so all the stories, all the external, whatever I was making up in my mind just flew away because I was able to get back to this moment. So thank you for
That's
sharing.
brilliant. I like your therapist. She sounds great. Or he.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
a she a long time ago, but
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, but that's a brilliant piece of advice. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. Like what you said, if you are exposed to the news, you know, and it's pretty scary stuff, it's like look around you because that will bring you back to this moment. So it reminded
Mm,
me of that exercise.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, David, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's beautiful, it's inspiring. And like I said before, I can't wait to go listen to the orchestra as well as to your paintings
Mhm.
and for the audience, I will include all of that in the description of the show so that it's nice and easy for them to find the
Thank
creations
you.
that
Yeah.
you've made.
Brilliant.
Yes, thank you again. It's been an
My
honor and a
pleasure.
pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.